Now, these legal structures are, when I say primary, there are actually 5 in total that we'll talk about, but the other 2 are hybrids or mixtures of these 3 primary ones, okay? The first one, proprietorships, is by far the most common of the 3. I mean, we're talking the majority of businesses are proprietorships, simply because you are a proprietorship by default. A lot of businesses go out, for instance, and just start a business without even thinking about a business license. In fact, half the businesses in this country are not licensed. They don't have a business license. Sometimes they're not required to, but very often it's because they just didn't think to get it. And so they're a proprietorship, legally a proprietorship, whether they have a license or not. Partnership is also common. Corporations are common, but proprietorships are the most. Now, the primary difference between a proprietorship and a partnership are the number of owners. Proprietorship, by definition, is one owner and one owner only. You cannot have more than one owner in a proprietorship. That's why it's called a sole proprietorship.
Could that be husband and wife?
Some states permit the husband and wife to be a one owner for a proprietorship. Some say so. Partnerships are 2 or more owners. Okay? You cannot have just one partner in a partnership. You must have at least 2 people, okay, in a partnership. Then the corporations are a totally different animal altogether. Now let's talk about what the advantages and disadvantages of a proprietorship, well, eventually of all of these. But let's look first at a proprietorship. Each of these legal structures has advantages and disadvantages. There is not one that is always preferable to another. You have to look at the circumstances to evaluate which one is better for that particular situation. The advantages to a proprietorship are, first, that it's very simple to start and operate, and it's inexpensive. Again, all you have to do is start a business and you're a proprietorship. Preferably, and in most areas, you're going to need to get a business license. Now, the reason why it's so simple in a proprietorship is there's nobody to answer for. It's your business. It's your money. That business checking account is your money. So it just makes life real easy to work with when you're running the business. Okay? On the downside, however, the one downside is it's tied to the owner. There is no way for the proprietor to exit that business and it remain intact. If the owner dies, if the owner wants out, if the owner sells the business, the new owner has to go out and get new federal and state numbers, has to go out and get a new business license, has to go through all that process. Now, to the public, there may be no change other than there's a new person behind the counter. That might be the only change that's recognized. But to the federal government and to your vendors, it's a different company, different owner. So that's a problem. One of my clients was an older fellow. He wanted to give the company to his son, and so he wanted to stay a proprietorship simply because then he can just give it to him. Well, in fact, once we sat down and told him, no, not true, you're going to have to go through and he's going to have to get new numbers and everything, then he elected to do something different that we'll talk about in a minute, okay? Although he just wanted to do it in advance. So it's tied to the owner. But the big one is what Taylor mentioned. It is the personal risk involved. Yes, you get all the rewards, but you also take all the risks. And if the company fails, you could lose not only your business, but all your personal belongings as well. Okay? Because this is simply an extension. You're responsible for what happens in that business. One of my neighbors, driving out of Evanston, went off the road. Took him 6 months to recover from that injury. When he got out, all that was left of his, what had been a very successful business, was just a big stack of bills. And he ended up having to sell his home, sell his boat, snowmobiles, sell all of his personal assets to then pay off his bills. He now lives in an apartment building and drives a delivery truck. So it's really set him back financially to go through that. So recognize that when you get the rewards, you also take the risks. And there's a lot of personal risk. Now, how does this impact us when we're looking at different businesses? Some businesses have higher risks than other businesses. Do you agree with that? If you own a gas station, is it a fairly risky business? You bet. It is. A lot of environmental potential problems, danger to customers and employees, heavy things, back problems, all those things that come with that type of a business create huge risk on the part of the gas station owner. So proprietorship is not a good place to be for a gas station owner. We'll talk about one that carries less risk here in a minute. However, some of you are looking at freelancing and bookkeeping. The risks are very minor. Now, if there's fraud involved, you know what fraud is? Intentionally, knowingly, and willfully misstating the financial statements for gain. Client comes up to you and says, hey, I can never sell this business with a financial statement like that. Fix it. Make it look better. If you participate in that, that's fraud. Okay? Then all bets are off. But as long as you're careful, now if you make mistakes, that's where the protection comes in. If it's just an oversight, someone, you make a mistake in there and someone looks at it, misunderstands it, and you had no intention of making that mistake. There's no liability. So proprietorship's a great way to start. It's got all the simplicity and ease of working with, there's very little risk financially because you don't have large lease payments on equipment or inventory that you're having to carry and all those things. You don't have that. So with low risk, and plus when you don't have employees, it's a great way to go. Okay?